2021. We now are going to discuss two rules that are going into effect in 2022. And they actually are not in effect yet. They will be effective March 17th of 2022, so in a couple weeks. So you're getting an exciting free preview of what's to come. The first one of these rules has to do with broker supervision. So under our current law, there's very little guidance for brokers on what it means to supervise. Basically, the law says brokers must be in a position to supervise, and it doesn't really go much further than that. So this rule puts forth, and this is not an exhaustive list. There's going to be other things that happen that can fall under broker supervision. But I think of this as kind of a roadmap or to-do list, a to-don't-do list for you guys, for the qualifying brokers. And so you know kind of what the commissioners expect regarding the word supervision. There's 13 of these. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm sure you're going to read them as soon as they're released. But I do want to highlight a couple of them and then just give some real life examples of this. So the first one I want to talk about seems very, very basic, but it's very important. And that is the fact that one of the things obviously expected of qualifying brokers is that your license is in good standing. That it's not inactive, it's not lapsed, that you've kept up with your CE, that you've paid your renewal fees. Because if your license lapsed, all those licenses of your salespeople underneath you also lapse. So you're the foundation. And so we just want to make certain that that responsibility is to keep your license as it should be. The next one I'm going to talk about is just simply allowing someone that works for you that does not have a license to do licensed activity. So a good example of this is if you were set to go to an open house and then one of your children got sick and you had to send, you were in a bind, so you sent one of your clerical staff to the open house alone. Well, that is licensed activity, and so that would, be something that would be considered definitely a violation. So there's some guidance on that issue. Another one is allowing people who have worked for you in the past or maybe work for you in a different capacity now to do activities that require a license, but their license may be on inactive status or expired. You just need to make certain you know the status of their license. So let's say that their license is currently inactive and they send a client to you, and the client decides to list with you, or you help them buy a home and there's a commission paid, and then you give a little referral fee over to the person that helped send the client to you. Well, they're on inactive status, so they're not allowed to have that. So that's just something else on the list that we would expect a qualifying broker not to do. The next one I'm going to talk about, I think, is the most important thing on the list. And the reason I say that is how you react to this particular one is going to determine how we as legal decide whether or not to place a qualifying broker also in a formal complaint. And that's going to be number 8 on the list. And it's failing to timely take action to correct or mitigate a violation of license law or regulation after you learn of the violation. So I'm going to give you 2 examples and how they went 2 different ways. We had a licensee, his license had lapsed, and just because of some mitigative circumstances, he did not realize that. And this was for about a 2-month period. And he continued to transact business, he continued to enter into listings, go to closings, and receive his commission. Well, the day he realized that his license had actually been lapsed for a couple months, he immediately called his qualifying broker. His qualifying broker immediately called me, and they actually got the qualifying brokers of the parent company involved as well. They were very upset about this. They wanted to know what they needed to do immediately to try to remedy it. The salesperson actually paid back the commission that had been paid during this time. So because of that, now we did file a formal complaint against the salesperson, but I did not include the brokerage in the formal complaint because as soon as they learned of this, they contacted us and let us know. The opposite of that is a situation that occurred where the qualifying broker learned that one of her salespeople was doing property management on the side. And we know she knew this because of some emails that we found. And she admonished her about it, but then never followed up about it, and the woman continued to do it, and she did not contact us about it. In that circumstance, we did include the qualifying broker in the formal complaint. So it's just so important. Your reaction is going to determine basically my action in moving forward. Another one is failing to oversee or account or properly handling money. Obviously, everyone knows this. As the broker, you're responsible for all the trust accounts. But this actually goes and extends a little bit further than that. One of the #1 complaints we have from consumers is regarding earnest money. So this is just, you need to remember that if you have a salesperson who has entered into a contract and earnest money is part of that contract, that it's supposed to be received and delivered, and this may be delivered to a third party, a title company or a closing attorney, so not necessarily delivered to your brokerage. You just need to make sure that that actually happens, because these transactions fall apart, and that's when people realize the earnest money was never collected. So it's just making sure that, that your salespeople understand and know that they have that responsibility, even though it's not going to the brokerage, to get it to the title company or to get it to the closing attorney. Okay, this is one of the ones that's probably my biggest pet peeve. And this is failing to ensure that the company's advertisements or its licensees' advertisements comply with license law. So the #1 complaint we get with a licensee calling about another licensee is about social media advertising. So then I spend about 2 hours looking through someone who I don't know, their Facebook post. And if you know that you have salespeople, and this is asking a lot, I understand that are actively advertising on social media, you need to every now and then glance at that social media and make sure that they are in compliance with the license law regarding advertising. So again, this law is not exhaustive. This rule is not exhaustive. It's just a list of things to help guide you and a list of activities that you can definitively say, if you had to go in front of the commissioners, they would consider this lack of supervision. Any questions about that one? All right, the final one I'm going to discuss has to do with applicants who have a criminal history. And this, as you all know, whenever you want to become a licensee in Alabama, you must get fingerprinted. And then that fingerprint leads to a criminal history check. It's a national check run through NCIC. So it's going to check all local, state, and all federal crimes. And then we get, as the legal division, we get that report back. If you've committed any felony, you automatically have to go in front of the commission for them to approve you to move forward. If you've committed a misdemeanor, it depends on the type of misdemeanor you committed. So let me give you an example. We call it, it has to be a misdemeanor of moral turpitude, a crime of moral turpitude. So basically, if you got a first offense DUI, you do not go in front of the commission because that's not a crime of moral turpitude. A crime of moral turpitude normally involves fraud as an element. So if you wrote a worthless check, then you would have to go in front of the commission because fraud is part of the crime of writing the worthless check or negotiating a worthless instrument. So you would have to go in front of them. One of the things that the commissioners have to consider whenever people appear in front of them with these criminal histories is they have to determine if an applicant is qualified and fit to hold a real estate license. So 2 of the criteria they really look at in making that determination: has the person paid back their fines and fees that are owed to the court system or their restitution that's owed to the victim? They also look to see if that person is still on probation or parole. Normally, when they see that a person still owes money or still is on probation or parole, they feel like they haven't really reached that point yet where they should be able to hold a real estate license. So this rule now allows that when we have someone that owes money or is on probation or parole, that applicant can be rejected at staff level. And the reason this is important is that we have so many people applying that do have criminal history. And most of the time, quite frankly, the criminal history is a bad check that was written 18 years ago. But we want to get the people in front of the commission that we feel are going to be approved as quickly as possible so they can move forward with their licensing. Please know, though, that if we reject someone at staff level, that they receive a letter and they still can ask for a hearing within 30 days. So they still have the right to come in front of the commissioners if they don't like that we rejected them. This just allows us to send that letter at the beginning. Another thing that this rule allows, it allows us to reject an application at staff level for anyone that lied on their application. So there's a portion, as you all know, that asks if you've been arrested, imprisoned, fined, probation, parole. You know, people a lot of times, they just put no, 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 no. We're going to find out that there is a criminal history, and the defense of, I forgot, I wouldn't forget a night in jail, I'm sure most of us would not, doesn't fly. So if they lie on that application, then again, we can reject them at staff level, but again, they have 30 days to request a hearing, and they can come back in front of the commissioners. So we're just hoping that this kind of streamlines this process and allows more room on our agendas for people that have paid off all the money they owe, have gotten off probation and parole, to help them move forward in a quicker way. I hope that this has been informative. I hope that you have learned a lot about the new rules, but most importantly, I hope you've seen that when we go to pass a rule, we really focus on ones that are going to give you more freedom and more guidance to follow the law in a better way. And our next Briefly Legal is going to be June 2nd. I'm sorry, I have a question. Yes?
Aaron Sims.
Yes, Mr. I talk to Mr. Sims a lot. Hey, Aaron.
He needs to unmute himself.
Oh, unmute yourself, please.
Can you hear me now?
I can, yes.
Okay.
Okay, throw me a softball, please.
The broker supervision rules, when will those be published?
They should be online they go into effect March 17th, so probably the afternoon of March 17th or the morning of March 18th. And just go to our website, look under, the law, and that they will be there for you to see.
Everything you mentioned seems pretty obvious as something we should be doing anyway. Can you go into the need to clarify why you have to clarify those things?
We just felt a lot of other states have done this in their rule, and I just think that we've really been trying to focus a lot at the commission on broker supervision, qualifying brokers. We've started this thing that if you become a new qualifying broker and open your brokerage, you can request an assistance visit from one of our auditors, which they will come out, they'll come to you, or they'll do it virtually, however you want, and they'll just make sure that you understand, all about what they would look for if they audited you, how to make sure your trust accounts are set up correctly. So we just wanted to give a better roadmap for people. Aaron, unfortunately, we have cases, and this is one of the ones I didn't go over, where, this has happened to me personally, where I've been speaking to a salesperson, and they literally say, I don't know the name of my qualifying broker. I mean, that's the absolute truth. So one of the things in here is, one of the parts of it is just making sure that your salespeople know who do they come to for questions. And another part of the rule that I didn't go over was to make sure that you have an orientation when you have new salespeople come in. These are just things we hope will help improve, the salespeople ability, because they're fresh out of school and they're new, and they need to know that qualifying broker should serve as their mentor, the person to go to for questions. So I think if you look at all of them when they're released, all 13, you'll see that, you're right, it is common sense and we shouldn't have had to do it, but just because of some of the complaints we get in, we just thought it was necessary. Okay, and as always, you can reach out to us. Our website is arec.alabama.gov. Our phone number is 334-242-5544. And you can always email us. I'm sorry, I have a question.
Mr. Sims has another question.
Mr. Sims, yes, sir?
It's me again. While I've got you, could you talk a little bit about, where the process is for proposed changes to licensing and brokers licensing, where that is?
Yes, sir. The broker's licensing is something that could be part of legislation that is introduced this legislative session. I'm not sure about that. I know that AAR is working on a bill and that is part of it. And Mr. Sims referring to the fact that instead of, I think, 2 years to become a broker, it allows for 4 years. So that's something that we've had a task force on, and they came up with that suggestion of the 2 years to the 4 years. It's just, it's pending going through the legislature, which I have learned in this job can be a very, very slow process. And that's not something we can do by rule. So that has to go through the legislature. So we're waiting on that to get it approved. Introduced, I should say, and approved.
And what about proposed free license changes?
Are you talking about the education changes?
I'd heard that there was talk about also changing pre-license requirements. Where is that?
Yes, sir. It's in task force right now. That would be a major change. Basically, pre and post, as I understand it, would be combined. So it would be a lot more education prior to actually having the license where you can go work. But that is in kind of the infant stages right now, and there's a task force that's been convened that includes, obviously different instructors across the state, and they are still working through that. So that is not in a posture at all right now to go before the legislature.
Got it, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Hi. I'm a new broker, and I have only done residential sales mostly, but I have a commercial agent in my office, and I need to understand a little bit more the difference between residential and commercial. What are the requirements for residential versus commercial? As far as recad, my understanding is, recad I don't think you have to do on commercial.
Yeah, correct. It's if you're and Ginger, I'm going to give you my direct line. So please reach out to me, and we can. I want to make sure that I give you all the answers. But basically, the two big difference is recad and estimated closing sheets. So those would be the two main differences. So my direct dial is 334-353-0859.
Okay.
So just call me later today, and we can talk that through. But those are the two, really, those are the only two differences I can think of off the top of my head. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, so I've given you our web address, our phone number, my direct dial, and the email address. We are also available on social media. Our social media can all be found at AREC Alabama Gov, no dots, it's just all one, at AREC Alabama Gov. And we have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok is now on our list of social media. So our next Briefly Legal will be June 2nd, so hopefully you will come back and join us for that. And I've loved talking to you guys today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.